Hey there, and welcome back. We're diving deep into the PTE academic exam, specifically the read aloud section of the speaking test.
Oh, yeah.
And, you might be thinking, reading aloud, psh, that's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
But hold on, there's more to it than meets the eye, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
This seemingly simple task can actually impact your speaking score, making it a double whammy.
Yeah.
To help us navigate this challenge, we've got an expert with us who knows the PTE inside out.
Well, it's fantastic to be here. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The read aloud might seem simple, at first glance, but it's actually quite nuanced. And those nuances can often trip test takers up.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. What exactly are we dealing with here? What will this read aloud task actually look like on exam day?
Okay, so picture this. You're sitting at the computer, maybe a little nervous energy buzzing around. A short text pops up on the screen.
Right.
It's usually around 40 to 60 words.
Okay.
And you have a brief window, about 70 to 40 seconds, to prepare before the microphone activates. Then it's showtime. You need to read that text aloud, clearly and naturally, and convey the information accurately and engagingly.
I see where the potential pitfalls could be. I mean, we've all had those moments where, we stumble over a word or lose our train of thought while reading aloud, right?
Oh, yeah.
How does the PTE specifically assess this section? What are the examiners really listening for?
They're listening for three key things: content, pronunciation, and fluency.
Okay.
Each of these is worth 5 marks, adding up to a total of 15 for the read aloud section.
Gotcha.
Now, content seems pretty obvious, right? You need to accurately reproduce the text as it's written.
Yeah.
No skipping words, no adding your own interpretations, just a clear and faithful rendition of what's on the screen.
Right, so it's not enough to just read the words. You have to prove that you actually understand what they mean.
Right.
But what about pronunciation? What constitutes good pronunciation in the PTE context?
So it's not just about saying the words correctly. It's about clarity and naturalness. Examiners are listening for clear articulation of each sound and an overall flow that sounds natural to a native English speaker.
Okay.
Think about word stress, intonation, and linking sounds together smoothly.
So it's about finding that balance between accuracy and just having a natural flow, right?
Yeah.
No robotic, monotone reading aloud.
Exactly.
And then, of course, we have fluency. What are the examiners looking for in terms of pace and rhythm? I imagine speaking too fast or too slow could be detrimental.
You're exactly right. Fluency is all about maintaining a smooth and natural rhythm without sounding rushed or hesitant.
Yeah.
There's no magic number for words per minute, but the key is to sound like you're comfortably conveying information, pausing naturally at punctuation marks,
Right.
and using intonation to emphasize key points.
I'm starting to see the complexity here. It's not just reading words off a screen, it's a performance, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to be accurate, clear, and engaging, all while staying calm under pressure. No wonder people get a little nervous about this section. So let's talk about how to avoid some of those common pitfalls and instead develop strategies for success.
Absolutely. A lot of test takers focus on pronunciation and fluency during their prep, but one of the biggest mistakes is underestimating the importance of that short prep time. Those 30 to 40 seconds can make all the difference.
Yeah.
Instead of just passively staring at the text, use that time strategically.
So it's about active preparation, not just waiting for the microphone to turn on, right?
Yeah.
So what should we specifically be doing during those precious few seconds?
Think of it like a mini strategy session. First, read the text silently, and not just skimming, but really absorbing the meaning and identifying any potentially tricky words or phrases. Circle or underline those challenging words and practice mentally rehearsing their pronunciation.
So it's about getting ahead of those potential pronunciation snags, right?
Absolutely.
That's smart.
What else can we do to maximize that prep time? Pay attention to punctuation.
Oh, okay.
Those commas, full stops, and even semicolons.
Yeah.
They're not just there for decoration. They're your roadmap to a smooth and natural delivery.
Right.
Think of them as natural pauses, breaths, and opportunities to emphasize key points.
So it's like the punctuation is conducting the flow of your reading.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've prepped, we've analyzed the punctuation. What's next? What about the actual delivery during the recording?
Eye contact.
Eye contact.
You might think, wait, eye contact for an audio recording?
Mm-hmm.
But hear me out. Keeping your eyes glued to the screen as you read forces you to focus. Follow the text precisely
Right.
and avoid skipping or misreading words.
So it's a concentration technique, right? Making sure your mind doesn't wander as you're reading.
Exactly.
Yeah, I see the logic there. But what about pace and intonation? I imagine those can be tricky to master.
You're right. Those are key elements of sounding natural and engaging.
Yeah.
Think of it like a conversation. You wouldn't speak in a flat monotone.
Wait, no.
You'd vary your pitch and tone, emphasizing certain words and phrases to convey meaning and emotion. It's the same with the read aloud. Use your voice to bring the text to life.
So we're not just reading words, we're conveying a message, right?
Exactly.
It's about understanding the context and the purpose of the text and using our voice to communicate that effectively.
You got it. Now, there's no magic formula for the perfect pace or intonation.
Right.
But the goal is to sound natural and authentic.
Yeah.
Like you're comfortably sharing information with someone. Practice reading aloud from various sources, news articles, academic journals, even fiction, to get a feel for different styles and tones.
Okay, so it's about building that versatility and confidence in your delivery.
Yeah.
Now, I know you have tons of experience working with PTE test takers, right?
I do.
What are some of the most effective practice techniques you've seen successful students use to really nail this section?
One of the most valuable techniques is recording yourself and then listening back critically.
Right.
It's one thing to think you sound great while you're reading, but it's another to actually hear your performance objectively.
It's like having your own personal PTE coach right there in your pocket.
Exactly.
So what specifically should we listen for when we play back those recordings?
Listen for any words you tend to mispronounce, any instances where your pace gets too fast or too slow, and any moments where you sound hesitant or unsure.
Okay.
Pay attention to your intonation and ask yourself, does this sound natural and engaging, or am I just reading words off a screen?
That's great advice. It's about becoming aware of our own habits and tendencies and then working to refine them, right?
Yes.
Now, I know we've talked a lot about the importance of practice.
Yeah.
But what about the content of that practice? Should we be reading anything and everything? Or are there specific types of texts that are particularly helpful for preparing for the PTE read aloud?
That's a great question. While it's good to practice with diverse materials, aligning your practice with the PPE's academic focus is crucial. This means incorporating texts that are similar in style and complexity to what you'll encounter on the exam.
Okay, so we're talking academic journals, research papers, that sort of thing?
Exactly. Think about the topics you might encounter on the PTE: science, technology, history, social sciences.
Yeah.
Familiarize yourself with the vocabulary and sentence structures common in these fields.
Gotcha.
Not only will this help you with the read aloud, but it'll also benefit you in other sections of the test.
So it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
By expanding our vocabulary and reading comprehension skills, we're not just prepping for the read aloud, we're improving our overall academic English proficiency.
Absolutely.
Now, I know we've covered a lot of ground already, but before we move on to more advanced tips, is there anything else we should be doing to create an optimal recording environment for our practice sessions?
That's a great point. Your recording environment can significantly impact the clarity and quality of your audio, which directly affects your score. So let's talk about setting up a space that's conducive to recording success.
All right, let's dive into the technical side of things. What are your top tips for creating a recording sanctuary?
Okay, so first and foremost, minimize background noise.
Okay.
Find a quiet room where you won't be interrupted by family members, roommates, or pets.
Right, we need a space where our voice can really be the star of the show, right?
Exactly.
What else should we consider?
Turn off any fans, air conditioners, or other devices that might create distracting sounds.
Gotcha.
Even subtle background hums can interfere with the clarity of your recording.
So it's about creating a controlled environment where every sound matters, right?
Absolutely.
What about the microphone itself? Are there specific types of microphones that are better suited for the PTE read aloud?
You know, you don't need a fancy studio-grade microphone to record high-quality audio.
Oh.
In fact, the built-in microphone on most laptops and headphones is perfectly adequate for the PTE.
All right, that's good to know.
The key is proper microphone placement.
Okay, so let's talk microphone mastery. What are the do's and don'ts of positioning for optimal audio quality?
All right, so you don't want to be too close to the microphone, as this can cause distortion and make your voice sound boomy.
Right.
But you also don't want to be too far away, as this can result in a faint or muffled recording.
It's about finding that Goldilocks zone, right?
Exactly.
Not too close, not too far, but just right.
You got it.
Any tips for finding that sweet spot?
Experimentation is key. Record a few test sentences at different distances from the microphone, and listen back to see which placement produces the clearest and most natural-sounding audio.
So it's a bit of trial and error, finding what works best for our individual voices in a recording setup, right?
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I have to ask, are there any pre-recording rituals you recommend to help us warm up our voices and get in the zone for optimal performance? I'm picturing vocal exercises, maybe a few tongue twisters thrown in for good measure.
You're on the right track. Warming up your vocal cords before you record is like stretching before a workout.
Right?
It helps you perform at your best. Simple tongue twisters like "She sells seashells by the seashore" or "Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers" can work wonders for improving clarity and articulation.
Those are classics for a reason. They're like a mini workout for our tongues and lips.
Absolutely.
Any other warm-up exercises you recommend?
Humming gently or doing some lip trills can also help relax your vocal cords
Okay.
and prepare them for the task ahead. And don't forget about breathing.
Yeah.
Taking a few deep breaths before you start recording can calm your nerves and ensure you have enough air to support your voice throughout the read aloud.
So it's a holistic approach, preparing both our bodies and minds for peak performance.
Exactly.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive, understanding the nuances of the task, identifying common pitfalls, and developing some initial strategies for success. But I'm eager to hear more. In part 2, we'll delve into even more advanced tips and techniques to help our listeners truly conquer the PTE read aloud.
Sounds great. We've talked a lot about the technical aspects of the read aloud, like pronunciation, fluency, pacing.
Yeah.
But there's another layer to this task that can really elevate your performance.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more. What's this other layer?
It's about understanding the why behind the read aloud.
Okay, the why. I like it. It sounds like we're about to uncover some hidden dimension to this seemingly simple task.
Exactly. The PTE academic isn't just about proving that you can read words off a screen, right? It's about demonstrating your ability to communicate effectively in an academic setting.
Right. So it's not just about sounding good. It's about conveying meaning and engaging with ideas.
Right.
Right? Like you would in a real academic context.
Absolutely. When you approach the read aloud with this mindset, it can subtly change your delivery. You're not just reading words, you're conveying information.
Right.
Engaging with ideas, and even subtly persuading the listener that you understand the material.
Yeah.
And that can make all the difference in how you're perceived by the examiners.
It's like the difference between simply reading a recipe and like explaining a culinary technique with passion and understanding,
Absolutely.
So how can we actually apply this why to our preparation and delivery?
As you practice, don't just focus on the mechanics, right?
Yeah.
Think about the meaning behind the words. Imagine you're sharing this information with an audience.
Right.
And let that inform your delivery.
I love it. Okay, so we're bringing in this human element to the technical skill. It's about connecting with the material and conveying that connection to the listener.
Exactly.
Now let's talk scoring for a minute.
Yeah.
How exactly is this task evaluated, and, what are some insider tips for maximizing our score in each area?
Sure. The scoring for the read aloud is based on those 3 key components we discussed: content, pronunciation, and fluency.
Yeah.
Each component is worth 5 marks for a total of 15.
All right, let's break it down.
Okay.
What are the examiners looking for within each category? What makes, a high-scoring performance different from a mediocre one?
For content, it's all about accuracy.
Right.
Did you reproduce the text exactly as it was written, without omitting or adding any words? Even a slight deviation can cost you valuable marks.
So precision is key here. It's not just about getting the general idea across.
Right.
It's about that attention to detail.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Now, pronunciation is where things get a little trickier.
Okay.
It's not simply about saying the words correctly. It's about clarity, naturalness, and demonstrating an understanding of English phonetics.
Right.
Examiners are listening for things like proper word stress, correct intonation patterns, and smooth linking of sounds between words.
Sounds like we need to channel our inner linguist, right?
A little bit.
Are there any specific pronunciation pitfalls that test takers commonly fall into?
One common mistake is misplacing word stress. English is a stress-timed language, meaning that certain syllables within words are emphasized more than others.
Right.
Getting the stress wrong can make a word sound unnatural or even change its meaning entirely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's not just about pronouncing individual sounds correctly. It's about understanding that musicality of the language, right?
Absolutely.
Those subtle rises and falls in pitch
Okay.
that convey meaning.
Another common challenge is with vowel sounds.
Mm-hmm.
English has a wide variety of vowel sounds.
Okay.
And some of them can be quite subtle and difficult to distinguish for non-native speakers.
Especially for those coming from languages that, may have a smaller vowel inventory.
Absolutely, yeah.
What about intonation? What are some key things to keep in mind to ensure that our intonation sounds natural and engaging?
Well, intonation is all about using your voice to convey meaning and emotion, right?
Uh-huh.
Think about how you would naturally emphasize certain words or phrases in a conversation to, make a point or express a feeling.
Right.
It's the same principle with the read aloud.
Yeah.
Use your voice to bring the text to life,
So we're not just reading, we're painting a picture with our voices, right?
You've got it.
We're guiding the listener through the text.
Pay attention to the punctuation, as this will often give you clues about how to modulate your voice.
Okay.
For example, a question mark usually indicates a rising intonation, while a full stop signals a falling intonation.
Yeah.
Right.
So punctuation is our guide, but we should also listen to our intuition and, let our understanding of the text inform our delivery.
Absolutely.
Now, what about fluency? How can we ensure that our speech flows smoothly and naturally without sounding rushed or hesitant?
So fluency is all about rhythm and pacing, right?
Yeah.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your speech sounds neither too fast nor too slow, allowing the listener to comfortably follow along.
Right, and I imagine nerves can play a role here, causing some test takers to maybe speed up or stumble over their words.
You're absolutely right. Nerves are a natural part of the test-taking experience, but it's important to find ways to manage those nerves and maintain a sense of calm and focus. Remember to breathe.
Yeah.
Taking deep breaths before and during the recording can help regulate your heart rate and calm your nerves.
Deep breaths. Check. That's a great reminder. Are there any other practical tips for maintaining fluency, under pressure?
One technique that many successful test takers use is chunking.
Chunking, okay.
Instead of trying to read the entire text in one breath, break it down into smaller, more manageable chunks, based on phrases or grammatical units.
Right, so it's about, strategically pausing and regrouping to ensure a smoother delivery.
Exactly. Practice this chunking technique during your preparation so that it feels natural and comfortable on exam day.
So we've prepped, we've practiced, we've mastered, the technicalities of pronunciation, intonation, fluency. But what about the mental game? How can we boost our confidence and just stay calm and focused in that high-pressure testing environment?
Absolutely.
Any advice for our listeners on, overcoming those pre-test jitters?
That's a crucial aspect of test-taking success.
Yeah.
Remember, confidence can truly make a difference in your performance.
Absolutely.
One of the most effective ways to boost your confidence is to visualize success.
Okay, visualize success. I like it. Tell me more.
Close your eyes and imagine yourself sitting at the computer, feeling calm, focused, and prepared. See yourself reading the text aloud with clarity, accuracy, and natural flow.
Okay.
Hear the positive feedback from the examiners in your mind's ear.
Right.
The more you practice this visualization, the more real it will feel and the more confident you'll become.
It's like training our minds to expect success, right?
Exactly.
And perform at our best.
Exactly.
Are there any other mental strategies we can use to, just stay focused and avoid getting rattled during the exam?
Another helpful strategy is positive self-talk.
Oh, okay.
Instead of letting those negative thoughts creep in, replace them with affirmations like, I can do this, or I am well prepared.
So it's about consciously shifting our mindset, right? Silencing those inner critics and amplifying our inner cheerleaders.
Exactly. And remember, the examiners want you to succeed. They're not looking for perfection. They're looking for clear, confident communication.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about some, advanced tips and tricks that can give our listeners an extra edge in the read aloud.
Yeah.
What are some of those lesser-known strategies that can make a real difference, in those final moments of preparation and during the recording itself?
One often overlooked aspect is warming up your voice properly.
Okay.
Think of it like an athlete stretching before a competition.
Yeah.
Warming up your vocal cords helps you achieve optimal clarity and prevents strain during the recording.
Yeah, and I imagine this is especially important, for those who might not be used to speaking English for longer stretches of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some effective vocal warm-up exercises we can do before the test?
Simple tongue twisters like the classic she sells seashells by the seashore,
Right.
are fantastic for improving articulation and getting your tongue and lips moving.
They're always fun, too.
Yeah, they are.
Any other warm-up techniques you recommend?
Humming gently or doing some lip trills can also help relax your vocal cords and prepare them for the task ahead. And don't forget about breathing.
Right, breathing. We touched on deep breaths for, calming nerves, but how can we use our breath to support our voice during the read aloud?
So taking a few deep breaths before you start recording ensures you have enough air to support your voice throughout the read aloud.
Okay.
Focus on breathing from your diaphragm, as this will give you more control and stamina.
So it's about breathing deeply and consciously, right?
Yeah.
Fuel our voices
Uh-huh.
and maintain that steady and controlled delivery.
Absolutely.
Are there any other technical nuances that we should be aware of during the recording itself? Things that, might not be immediately obvious, but can impact our score?
One thing that often gets overlooked is microphone technique.
Oh, okay. Microphone mastery.
Yes.
What are the do's and don'ts of, interacting with the microphone to ensure that optimal audio quality?
You don't want to be too close to the microphone,
Right.
as this can cause distortion, make your voice sound boomy.
Mm-hmm.
But you also don't want to be too far away,
Right.
as this can result in a faint or muffled recording.
It's about finding that Goldilocks zone again, right? Not too close, not too far, but just right.
Exactly.
Any tips for finding that sweet spot?
Experimentation is key. Record a few test sentences at different distances from the microphone.
Yeah.
And listen back to see which placement produces the clearest and most natural sounding audio.
It's all about trial and error, right?
Yeah.
Finding what works for you, your voice, your setup.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm curious. Are there any specific strategies you recommend for dealing with those moments when our brains just freeze up
Oh, yeah.
and we completely blank on a word? We've all been there, and I can only imagine how, panic-inducing that would be during the PTE.
That's a great question. And it's a scenario every test taker should be prepared for.
Absolutely.
The key is to stay calm
Right.
and avoid letting a momentary lapse throw you off your game.
Easier said than done. Right. I think our instinct is just to panic and, try to scramble to recover.
Absolutely. But panicking will only make things worse.
Right.
Instead, take a deep breath, pause briefly, and try to recall the word.
Okay.
If it comes back to you, great.
Yeah.
If not, don't dwell on it.
So it's about acknowledging the lapse,
Yes.
staying composed
Yeah.
and just moving on gracefully.
Exactly.
Are there any techniques we can use to, try to jog our memory in those moments?
Sometimes simply rereading the sentence from the beginning can help trigger your memory.
Oh, okay.
Or you can try paraphrasing the sentence in your mind using different words to convey the same meaning.
Great strategy. So it's about finding ways to work around that mental block
Uh-huh.
without letting it completely derail our entire performance.
Exactly.
Now, we've covered a lot of ground in this episode.
We
From the, technicalities of pronunciation and fluency
Yeah.
to the mental strategies for, staying calm and focused.
Uh-huh.
But I want to go back to the why we discussed earlier. The idea that the read aloud isn't just about reading words, but about communicating meaning and engaging with ideas.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's a crucial point that I want to emphasize.
Yeah.
Remember, the PTE academic is designed to assess your ability to function effectively in an academic environment.
So we need to, think beyond the mechanics of the task.
Yeah.
And approach it with the mindset of, a scholar, a researcher, a communicator of ideas.
Exactly. When you embody that mindset, it subtly shifts your delivery, adding a layer of authenticity and engagement that the examiners will appreciate.
It's about showing that we're not just reading words, we're, processing information, making connections, and conveying meaning.
Absolutely.
And that, I think, is what truly distinguishes a, high-scoring performance from a mediocre one.
I agree.
Now, I'm eager to hear, your final thoughts on how our listener can make the most of their remaining preparation time
Okay.
and walk into that exam feeling confident and ready to ace the read aloud. What are your parting words of wisdom?
Remember, practice makes perfect. But it's not just about the quantity of practice. It's about the quality.
Right.
Make every practice session count by focusing on those key elements we've discussed: pronunciation, intonation, fluency, and confidence. Record yourself, Listen back critically.
Yeah.
Identify areas for improvement and keep refining your technique.
So it's a continuous cycle, right, of practice, feedback, and a refinement.
Absolutely.
And don't forget the mental games.
Right.
Visualize success, practice positive self-talk, and remind yourself that you are well prepared and capable of doing this. The more you believe in yourself, the better you'll perform.
Absolutely.
Those are fantastic words of encouragement. I can already feel our listeners' confidence growing.
Good.
Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to address one more common concern that test takers often have dealing with unfamiliar words.
Sure, that's a valid concern.
Yeah.
It's inevitable that you'll encounter words you don't recognize during the exam.
Right.
But the key is to not let those unfamiliar words throw you off your game.
So it's about staying calm and resourceful, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some strategies we can use to tackle those tricky words without getting flustered?
First and foremost, don't panic.
Okay.
Remember, even native English speakers encounter words they don't know from time to time.
Yeah, all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
The key is to use context clues to try and decipher the meaning of the word.
So it's like a detective game, right?
Yeah.
We're using the surrounding words and phrases to piece together the meaning of that unknown word.
Exactly. Look for synonyms, antonyms, or other clues that might help you understand the general sense of the word.
Yeah.
If you're still unsure, don't dwell on it.
Right.
Try to pronounce it as best you can based on the phonetic rules of English
Yeah.
and move on.
So it's about, like, making an educated guess.
Yeah.
Keeping the flow going and not letting that one unfamiliar word derail our entire performance.
Precisely. And remember, the examiners are not expecting you to know every single word in the English language.
Right.
They're more interested in your overall ability to communicate effectively, even when faced with challenges.
That's reassuring.
Good.
Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, I want to touch on one more important aspect, pacing.
Okay.
We've talked about finding that sweet spot between, too fast and too slow. But are there any specific techniques that we can use to ensure our pacing is just right and that we don't run out of time before finishing the read aloud?
That's a great question. Time management is crucial in the read aloud.
Yeah.
And there are a few strategies you can use to ensure you make the most of that limited recording time.
Okay, let's dive into the art of pacing. What are your top tips for staying on track and delivering a, complete and well-paced reading?
One technique that I find particularly helpful is to practice reading aloud with a timer.
Oh.
This will give you a sense of how long it typically takes you to read a text of a certain length
Right.
and help you adjust your pace accordingly.
Yeah, so it's about developing that internal clock. Right. Becoming aware of our natural reading speed and making adjustments as needed.
Another useful strategy is to pay attention to the pauses.
Right.
Remember those punctuation marks we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
They're not just there for grammatical correctness.
Right.
They also serve as natural breathing points
Uh-huh.
and opportunities to slow down or speed up as needed.
So it's about using punctuation as our guide.
Yes.
Strategically pausing to regroup
Mm-hmm.
and ensure that, smooth and controlled delivery.
Precisely. And don't forget about the importance of practice.
Yeah.
The more you practice reading aloud with a timer and paying attention to your pacing,
Mm-hmm.
the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
So it's all about preparation, practice, and finding that perfect rhythm, right? Now, I'm excited to move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll delve into some real-world examples
Sounds good.
and practical exercises to help our listener put all this knowledge into action
Great.
and truly master the art of the PTE read aloud.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. All right, so we're back, and we are ready to put all this read aloud wisdom into practice. Expert speaker, you've guided us through the nuances of the task,
Yeah.
the scoring criteria,
Uh-huh.
even some mental strategies for, staying calm and confident.
Yeah.
Now, let's get down to brass tacks. Do you have any real-world examples or practice sentences that our listeners can use to hone their skills and really get a feel for what this section is all about?
Absolutely. I've got a few sentences here that cover a range of difficulty levels, incorporating some of those tricky elements we discussed,
Okay.
like word stress, intonation, and pacing.
Perfect. Let's hear them.
Okay, let's start with a classic tongue twister to warm up those vocal cords. She sells seashells by the seashore. The shells she sells are seashells, I'm sure. So if she sells seashells on the seashore, then I'm sure she sells seashore shells.
Oh, man, that one always gets me tongue-tied. But it's a great way to, test our articulation and precision.
Absolutely.
What else do you have?
All right, now let's shift gears to something a bit more academic. The Industrial Revolution, a period of profound technological advancement in the late 18th and 19th centuries, transformed the economies of Europe and North America, leading to unprecedented levels of urbanization and industrial growth.
Ooh, that's a mouthful.
It is.
I can already see the potential for, stumbling over those multisyllabic words and complex sentence structures.
Yeah,
It's a great example of why, understanding word stress and pacing is so crucial
exactly.
in the PTE read aloud.
It's a sentence that demands both accuracy and fluency.
Absolutely. Okay, what's next?
All right, for our next challenge, let's delve into the world of science. Quantum mechanics, a branch of physics that studies the behavior of matter at the atomic and subatomic levels, challenges our classical understanding of the universe, revealing a realm where particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously.
Wow, that one takes us deep into the realm of scientific concepts. It's a great example of how the PTE read aloud can test not just our pronunciation and fluency, but also our ability to grasp and convey those complex ideas.
You're right, it's a sentence that demands clarity, precision, and understanding of the subtle nuances of scientific language.
For sure. Okay, what's our last one?
Now for our final challenge, let's explore a topic that's both timely and thought-provoking. Climate change poses a significant threat to global ecosystems, necessitating urgent action to mitigate its impact and transition towards sustainable practices.
Ooh, that's a powerful statement. It highlights the importance of intonation and emphasis in, conveying urgency and conviction.
Exactly. It's a sentence that allows you to showcase your ability to engage with the material
Right.
and communicate a sense of purpose.
I love these examples. They really showcase the, range of topics and challenges that we might encounter in the PTE read aloud.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's our next step? How can our listeners use these practice sentences to, really hone their skills and prepare for the exam?
So I encourage you to record yourself reading these sentences aloud, just as you would during the actual exam.
Okay.
Then listen back critically, paying attention to all those elements we've discussed.
So it's back to our trusty recording setup.
Yes.
What specifically should we be listening for when we play back those practice recordings?
Okay, so listen for clarity and accuracy in your pronunciation.
Okay.
Are you stressing the correct syllables in each word? Are your vowel sounds clear and distinct?
Uh-huh.
Next, focus on your intonation. Does your voice rise and fall naturally, conveying meaning and engaging the listener?
Yeah.
Are you using pauses effectively to emphasize key points?
Right.
And finally, pay attention to your pacing. Does your speech flow smoothly and naturally, or are there moments where you sound rushed or hesitant?
So it's a full-on self-assessment, putting all those skills that we've learned into practice and becoming our own PTE coaches.
That's it.
Now, I have one more question before we wrap up this deep dive. You've shared so much valuable information with us.
Oh, thank you.
But is there anything else our listeners should be thinking about as they approach this read aloud section, something we haven't explicitly touched on yet?
That's a great question. We've covered a lot of ground, from the technical aspects of pronunciation and fluency to the psychological strategies for staying calm and confident.
Yeah.
But one thing I always emphasize to my students is the importance of authenticity.
Oh, authenticity. I like it. Tell me more about that. What does it mean to be authentic in the PTE read aloud?
It means finding your own voice,
Okay.
your own style within the framework of the task. The examiners don't want to hear robotic, monotonous readings. They want to hear real people engaging with the material in a natural and authentic way.
Right. So it's about striking that balance between following the rules and letting our personality shine through, right?
Absolutely.
How can we find that sweet spot,
It's about trusting yourself, your instincts, and your understanding of the English language.
Uh-huh.
Don't try to force a particular accent or delivery style that doesn't feel natural to you.
So it's about embracing our own unique way of speaking,
Yes.
while still adhering to those standards of clear and effective communication.
Exactly. Remember, the examiners are looking for people who can communicate confidently and effectively in an academic setting. And the best way to do that is to be yourself, to let your genuine voice and personality come through in your reading.
That's such an empowering message. It's about owning our voices,
Yeah,
our accents, our unique ways of expressing ourselves while still demonstrating that mastery of the language.
absolutely.
Expert speaker, this has been an incredibly insightful deep dive into the PTE Read Aloud. Thank you so much for, sharing your expertise with us
My pleasure.
and providing our listeners with such valuable strategies and encouragement.
You're very welcome.
And to our listener, we hope you feel equipped and empowered to tackle this section of the exam with confidence.
Yes.
Remember, practice makes perfect.
Absolutely.
And with the strategies and insights we've discussed today, you're well on your way to PTE success.
Best of luck.
Until next time, keep diving deep.